bears there are is because you can go walk the mountains and go get shots at multiple bears.
Yeah, even when you were telling that story, I'm like, he's acting like there's, he's telling me there's all these bears, and I'm like,
it's not common.
Yeah,
but when you have a good food source, they're everywhere. If you can find a good solid food source and get into that pocket, you're gonna walk up on bears everywhere.
Okay, I want to get into Coues deer.
Heck yeah.
Yep.
I have a love-hate relationship with Coues deer.
Yeah, so just tell me about Coues deer. So, that first buck when you're 13, mule deer, whatever. But what attracted you to Coues deer? What got you into Coues deer? How did that all start? And kind of what are your thoughts on Coues deer?
I don't even know what got me into Coues deer. I think it's just because that was the only deer around my folks' house when I was growing up. Like, that was the most accessible to me. And I spent so much time with them. You just grow to love them because it's annoying because they're so tiny. And
tiny.
Yeah, they're so tiny, and you look at that compared to a mule deer, and you're like, my dad, he was a huge mule deer guy growing up. But mule deer in Arizona has gone a little downhill, so that's part of it too. Is the opportunity for mule deer is a little bit lower, especially now with the new quota system.
Yep.
So you're almost forced to hunt whitetail more, but I think I'm a mountain guy, and there's a lot of whitetail in the mountains, and I think that's what it is. Yep. And then Coues deer, they're so unique in their own way. They're super pretty. Yep. And they have personalities, man. Their personalities are crazy. They're mean. That was like that one graphic I drew up with the Coues versus Muley. Because I don't know how many times I've been out glassing those little mixture areas, those fringe areas, and I see a little Coues deer bully this big old mule deer around like he's nothing. It's just funny because you're like, it's like little chihuahuas in a way.
It's like their attitudes are like, hey, this is my spot. Like, I don't care how big you are. I don't care how bad you think you are.
Yep.
Like, get out of here.
And then the other thing too with the Coues deer is like kind of going back to viewing hunting a little bit as the process of hunting and finding deer is kind of a game. Yeah. It's like you find a buck, it becomes a game like which home canyon is he living in? Because sometimes they might not travel as much as mule deer do in the flats. Yeah. And it's just a little bit more intimate because you're like, all right, here's this buck. I want to find out where he's living, and we're gonna spend time and you start learning about this buck, his personality, like what he likes to do. It's just a different experience with whitetail sometimes. And I don't know, man, just seeing them in the mountains is just like, they're super pretty.
Yeah, no, I love them. I think they're the best looking deer.
Yeah.
I even look at like eastern whitetails. Mm-hmm. Like, I'll watch on YouTube or whatever, watch the different hunting videos and hunting shows. And, you'll have like a Iowa whitetail buck, big buck, whatever, coming into like a bean field or something. And I'm like, man, that to me that doesn't even look like a whitetail. I'm like, it looks like ugly, like a bigger, like fatter face, and like I don't know. I was just thinking about it the other day. I was watching a video and I'm like, man, like a Coues deer is a real whitetail. Yeah, which is funny because like I've never hunted, they eastern whitetail or whatever, but.
They're almost like a livestock version of a Coues deer. Yeah. They kind of resemble kind of cows. Yeah. Which is funny because, Coues, cows.
Cows, yeah. The whole dynamic there.
So you'd think that they would look more like cows. But, it's just the way they're built. And, like, it's funny because, like, you look at the racks compared to mule deer, they're smaller. Yep. Compared to eastern whites. So it's like, why are you so fascinated about this, like, at best 110-pound animal? Yeah. And last year, I ended up shooting that buck in velvet. Yep. And he was this cool buck. He was a real pretty buck. And as soon as he came in, I'm like, I got to get this buck. And then 2 days after that, I find this, like, hands down, I'll take it to my grave. This buck is a typical 200-inch 4x4 mule deer. Just when I saw him, I was like, this is not even real. This thing's a cartoon. And I'm like, why? Obviously, I get excited for him, but I'm like, I should be chasing this. Yeah. And not running after these whitetail. And the whole reason I found that buck was because I jumped a buck that was like 115, 120 off of a tank in there, and I was going back to try to find him for my buddy's hunt. Yeah. And that's the only reason why I found that mule deer, because I was looking for a whitetail.
Yeah.
And I ended up finding more mule deer, and I'm like, man, I could be going in here and killing these deer, and I get twice as much meat, I get twice as much antler. I'm like, why am I over here wasting my time with these little deer? It's like an addiction.
Yeah.
Basically.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I love that. You talked about it a little bit. When you find a buck that for whatever reason, right, he gets you excited.
Yeah.
And you're like, all right, that's going to be my target buck. And let's say you've never seen him before. So you see him, you're scouting, whatever, and you're like, okay, I'm going to hunt this buck.
Yeah.
And you said, hey, I need to find out where this buck's living.
Yep.
What's the best way to do that you found? How do you figure out where he's living?
Getting up and glassing. That's what it always comes down to. There was this one real big whitetail back in the day. My buddy I mentioned, his wife, her first deer was a drop tine Coues deer buck that we had found that I messed up on with my bow. I actually passed him up with my bow because he wasn't grown enough.
Yeah.
And she ends up killing it later in October. Her second deer ended up being another big drop tine buck. And that was the first buck that first drop tine buck my buddy and I had ever seen. And back when you could run cameras, we had him on camera way the heck up in the mountains. And it's real thick growth.
Yeah.
We'd always been looking up there for this deer, never found him. Then one day my buddy he's just goofing off, has some time to kill. He's down at the trailhead, just glassing from the trailhead, finds this buck way down here, feeding whatever.
Yeah.
So we're like, oh, maybe this is where this buck lives.
Yeah.
So this is back when I was in college. We spent so much time watching. All of our free time went to going, and it was the weirdest place too. It was a weird little hill you would never think about getting up and glassing from because you could only see this one canyon.
Certain part, yeah.
Yep, that's all you could see is into this one canyon. Anywhere else you could not see that canyon. So we'd get up on there every week, and this buck, literally, we would bet money that 100 yard by 100 yard square area in the morning when first light came, he was right there, and he would feed his way up and disappear. And so that's how we ended up killing that buck, is because he was doing that exact thing, that exact pattern. But that was a huge lesson for us, because we're like, okay, on camera he's over here, and it's misleading because you're like, oh, he's right here.
Yeah.
But in reality, he was way the heck down, like another 1,000 feet of elevation down the mountain, literally from pines all the way down to mesquites.
Would you say half a mile, a mile?
A mile.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why do you think he was up there? Why did you get him on camera up there? What was he
So
doing
we had
up there?
salt up there.
Okay.
We did have salt lower down, and he was on that one, but not as much. So my only thoughts is he started up down there in the evenings, and he would maybe circle up top and then come back down. That's my only thoughts. And maybe it's so thick we just never were able to see him up there. But that's where he was mainly living in like the night and feeding. And it could be two different. Right there. Yeah, it could be different food sources down lower where you have your grasses and shrubs versus up in the pines. Could be it, but I'm not sure. But yeah, that's my main goal. Is like, I see a buck. Like in the instance of that buck, I jumped off that water. I went in there, man, I don't know, like, I don't even know how many times I've gone in there, maybe 50 times. And just, I get up different vantage points, and I'm just glassing, see if I can see him.
Yeah. And
so far, I have not been able to relocate that buck. But, so who knows? It's tough because you might have a buck on a random walkabout, or people oftentimes see bucks in January or February, especially on these javelina hunts, and they think, oh, that buck lives here. When they're chasing does, they can be miles away from where they normally live. Or in the summertime, depending on how many water sources are around, they might be miles from where they live on a water source. That mule deer I was telling you about, I've spent so much time back in there, hiking it, glassing it, I haven't been able to relocate him. But who knows? He could have just been on a random walkabout that day, and I got lucky to see him. Lucky, unlucky, because now I'm going crazy trying to find him. So it's tough. You got to get kind of lucky with finding.
Yeah. There you talked about some variables there, like these bucks will do these walkabouts, or time of year, right, and then water, or even time of year of like, okay, when they're growing in velvet. Their hormones and everything are all different than when they go hard horn. Now their hormones change, which maybe change some of their patterns and things like that. The rut, okay, what's the buck to doe ratio where they live versus where they're going to go and breed some does. Age class, I've heard guys like like my dad and Creed and some other guys being like, you know, I've seen these old bucks, they'll breed like 1 or 2 does. Yep. Don't really move that much.
That too, yeah.
Versus, you know, maybe a buck that's in his prime, 4, 5, 6 years old, that's like, oh yeah, I'm cruising, man.
Yeah.
And I'm cruising,
yeah.
and I'm checking every single doe,
yep.
you know, as I go.
Yep.
But short answer is you got to just be out there.
That's what it comes down to.
Looking, glassing, watching,
yep,
seeing what they're doing.
That's what it comes down to. And there's a efficiency and like efficacy component to it where it's like, do your research and figure out what point you need to be on to see the most country. And you could do that on Google Earth. You can do it on Onyx, but it's different when you're actually on the ground.
Yep.
Like for new areas, I'll e-scout the heck out of them.
Yeah.
I'll spend all day. I'll be like virtually hiking through Google Earth in them. And then I'll go in and I'm going to go learn, if it's a new area, a complete new area, I'm going to go and I'm going to learn all the roads. Like, okay, this road goes here. This road goes here. I mean, you can look at it on a map, but until you're actually driving it,
yep.
you can't put that map into your head,
yep.
at least for me. So I'll learn the roads, I'll walk it looking for sign, and then I'll start glassing it, and then I'll walk it again. So I can, okay, I'm looking, here's this pocket, here's a bunch of beds here, here's some crap from them feeding. Because when you're up in the glass, there's a lot of beds you can't see in the glass. You have no idea they're there.
Yep.
And you're like, why am I not seeing deer? And you're like, oh, there's these little pocket beds that are recessed, and these deer are hanging out in them. So you know, okay, next time I go glass, I need to look at this little bowl. I need to look at this saddle. And you start piecing it together that way. Yeah.
Okay, do you ever worry, or from your experience, have you seen these walks that you're doing, bump or influence or change what the deer are doing as far as like your scent, your sound, whatever? And extension of that question, have you like bumped good bucks on these walks while you're checking, exploring, and then you go back in the next week and they're still there, they're doing their thing, and they don't care?
Yeah, they might. If you bump them, they might be on the other side of a mountain for a day. Or if you're just doing your walk, I've bumped plenty of big bucks. I've bumped target bucks before. I go back in, sometimes even the next day, and they're back where they normally are. You think about how many times they get bumped by coyotes, by lions, everything. It's different though when you have a ton of guys walking through. Like the area we hunted last year when I was helping my buddies on their rifle hunt. I went in this area, I was seeing multiple shooter bucks, and they're always in the same area. Come opening day, it's like few and far between. But you have guys walking all around. Yeah. And so these deer,
they start to feel that pressure.
Correct.
See, hear, smell, and be like, okay. Then they maybe have areas that they go to hide.
Yep. I always call them, like the dark side of the moon. There's like the back side of the mountain. There's always those little pockets that they go to. If you find those, sometimes I've been on hunts where I've been helping, and we're at a glassing point that's above those or looking over those. Here comes opening day. You hear guys, World War II, and then here comes all these bucks straight into the canyon, and then you have them all to yourself for the rest of the day.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. All right. Here's a question.
Yeah.
For you, and you've done it a lot, and I know you've killed in January and in like August, September. Hunting a Coues deer buck, which one's easier? Hunting them in January or hunting them in August, September?
That's a tough one. I don't feel like there's a...
Or because it's a Coues deer, it's just not going to be easy.
They can be...
easy. So that's why I said easier, right?
Yeah.
Is it like, in January they might be with some does, so he's kind of preoccupied, but there's also extra eyes and ears, versus, if I can find where he's hitting water, maybe I can go sit a trail or sit the water or whatever. Do
you mean in general or like specific to the style of hunting? Because I have answers for both.
So both, yeah. Okay. So in general, if you're like, man, if I had to pick one, you could either hunt them in January or you can hunt them in August, September, and okay, I'm going to pick this because I know I'm going to be more successful because I feel like it's a little bit easier during this time frame, or because of the style and how it changes up, maybe it lends itself to,
I would say my answer for generally killing a mature buck with the style of and kind of in general off water or trails is easier in January because those bucks put their guard down. Those old wise bucks put their guard down to chase does, and so they miss a lot of things. Like I've literally had bucks almost run into me because they're so focused. In August, I would say spot and stock, you have a better chance at killing a big buck.
Really?
Yeah, in August they're feeding a lot, so they're a lot more active than people think.
Okay.
Because they have to grow those antlers, so they're out feeding a ton. But and most of the time, those big bucks, they're either by themselves or with some smaller bucks, less experienced bucks. So they're super killable spot and stock. It's tough because water during that time is a gamble, just like it is any other time.
Yeah.
But you have more of a chance in January of a buck following a doe, a solid mature buck following a doe in the water or down a trail, than you do in August.
Right.
It still happens. I've killed big bucks in August off water, and missed a plenty too. But January, I don't know. I've never really sat too much in January, so I can't really speak too much to that fact. But yeah, I would say overall, if I had to pick one to kill, hey, this is my target buck. I know where he lives. I want to kill him. August, hands down.
Okay.
Because he's going to be up feeding a lot. He's not going to be moving around a ton. He's not going to have 2-3 does with him. Mule deer bucks, even more does.
Yeah.
And I can just focus on him solely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you prefer, or do you have a preference, like full velvet buck, mostly grown out, or hard-horned?
Hard-horned.
Okay.
I said I'd never shoot a velvet buck again after I shot one back when I was in college. Because, I mean, man, they're just, that time of the year, especially towards the tail end of the season, they're switching their hair over.
Right.
And so they're ratty. The buck I just referenced, he was a small buck. And my mistake is he came in super close, and I wanted to see if I could draw back on him. Because he was like, I don't know, 10, 15 yards. I'm like, I just want to see if I can get back full draw on this deer.
Yeah.
And I did, and I'm like, well, I'm already here. And I didn't really look at him too close.
Settle the pin and
I'm like, he's a mainframe buck. Cool. And so I'm like, I'm in college. I talked myself into it. I'm like, I need to focus on class and stop messing around hunting. And so I shot him, and the way he was standing, where my blind was and how the arrow went up, he dropped right there. And because it went like, I don't know, the arrow did something weird.
Yeah.
I ended up hitting lung and heart, and I ended up hitting something in the spine. He dropped. But when I shot him, it was like a poof ball. It was like when you shoot a chickadee when you're a kid with a 22. It just
hair everywhere.
Yeah. And I'm like, great, now I got this freaking shedding dog basically I gotta go take care of.
Yeah.
And now I gotta worry about the velvet slipping, it's hot. So I'd rather shoot them hard horn because they're just way easier to deal with.
Okay.
And, like boiling out the skull.
So is it the look, or is it all that stuff you're talking about? It's just easier to deal with.
That and like my buck last year he was a pretty big buck.
Yeah.
And had he been hard horned, I'm sure he's so light because the velvet, you don't really, it hasn't completely calcified. You don't get that weight to them, so they're kind of just, they seem a little flimsy.
Yeah.
So they look cool, but they're hard to deal with, with preserving the velvet.
Right.
I don't know. I just like hard horn. You can feel all the burr.
Yeah.
You know it's completely grown out. It did suck because my buck last year, he's got some pretty bulbous ends. You're like, I probably would have had more inches.
Yeah.
On his rack had he gone the full. Yeah.
That's a pretty good story though too. You know, flip flops and shorts and.
Oh, the one last year. Yeah. I didn't think that one quite. My thought process. This is me being lazy, right? And being a rookie. I was getting ready. The thing that sucks about August too is you got to wake up at 3 a.m. to go. It's versus like January, because I'm not a morning person unless I'm hunting, and I force myself to go to the gym before work and everything, but I hate it. I hate getting up that early.
Yeah.
And so I was getting up tired. I don't know how long I'd been sitting. I'd been sitting so many days and not seeing a single mainframe buck. They're all spikes. I'm like, I'm tired of this hunt.
Yeah.
And so I'm like looking at my boots in the morning, getting my coffee going. I'm like, I love my boots. They're Zamberlins. They're comfy, but they're big. And I was just being lazy. I didn't want to lace them up. That's how lazy and done the hunt is. I'm like, I don't even want to lace these boots up. So I'm like, man, I'm just gonna be sitting in the blind anyways. It's like maybe a mile walk down an old roadbed. Cool. I don't need boots for that. I can walk barefoot, honestly, over there.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, got my Nike slides on that I've had since like freshman year of high school.
Yeah.
My basketball shorts, shirt. All right, I'm just gonna sit in the blind. It's probably gonna be another day looking at spikes.
Yeah.
So I go, sit in the blind, and I'm sweating it out because it's hot and it's humid. A little sauna in my blind, and all these deer come in. It's like a freaking zoo of all little fawns running around. I'm like, I don't know how one of them's gonna spook eventually.
Yeah.
Because they're running amok. There's like over a dozen deer on this tank, and then I look over and this buck comes walking out and just boom straight into the blind, and I'm like, oh no. I'm like, that buck's over 100 inches. I'm like, don't move, don't move, don't move. And then he honestly, I should never kill this buck because I could, like the bear, you sit so long, you don't have an opportunity. When one comes by, I get amped up. Normally, I get buck fever after, but if it's been a long time and seeing nothing, I cannot keep
excitement. Yeah. It's like finally.
So he comes out, I draw back. He looks at the blind, then disregards it because there's so much commotion going around with these deer running around, which is good and bad because I draw back and I can't get a shot. So I'm there waiting forever. So I'm shaking. Another thing too is like when I get amped, I always grab the bow wrong. It's one thing I got to work on like religiously. Yeah. So reticle's off. I tried to untorque it. I end up missing to the right, which is the common mistake of mine. With the bear, I hit to the right. This, I hit to the right. I missed him. He takes off. And I'm like, well, shoot, that sucks. My fault. My bad. Get another arrow. Maybe he might come back. He runs up on the dike, and I see his head kind of peek over. I'm like, he didn't get a drink, so he's thirsty. He wants to come back and drink. Comes back. I love this story because a lot of people think that, like, I don't know why, but they see my success, they see my dad, and they think I'm like this badass hunter. I'm not. This buck comes back. I miss him exactly the same way I missed him the first time. I miss him again. I'm like, dude, what the hell's going on? I'm mad at myself. Like, you just got a second chance, and you blew it. And so I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm going to...
third chance, yeah.
I'm like, I'm going to run out of arrows. And so I get another arrow, and I'm like, I'm here. I'm just going to sit. And so I'm like, all right, flush that. All right, just wipe it out of your memory. Yeah. Didn't happen. Like, don't focus on it. Focus on, okay, grab the bow, seat it in your hand right, breathe, slow down, aim, and follow through.
Yeah.
So I'm waiting. And I look over, and this other buck, another, like, maybe 100-inch buck, comes under the fence, goes down to get a drink, and I'm like, okay, here's my dippy buck, head up on the dike again. He's like, I don't know. He's like looking around like, what the hell happened?
Yeah, this guy's getting a drink.
Yeah, he's not seeing the 2 arrows laying in the dirt. He's like, well, he's here. I'm gonna go back down. So he walks out and he circles around, and he's starting to walk out. I'm like, okay, perfect. Like, all right, get it together. Like, I'm like, I don't know what the night's going to bring me if I miss this buck a third time. I'm not going to tell anybody. I'm just going to hate myself for a year. So I drove back, and I'm like, all right, just focus. Get it set. And I'm following him with the pin, and he's walking, and I'm so focused that I'm kind of backing my focus out to the pin so much that I'm like, he's blurring in my vision.
Okay.
And he takes a step forward, like towards me, towards the water, and I don't see that. So my pin's still on behind the shoulder, like where I thought he was, kind of broadside. Yeah. So I shoot, hits, and I see the exit immediately when he's running out. I'm like, oh, that's guts. And I'm like, what did I just...
So because that step forward, you hit him like...
It's just enough.
A little bit forward.
And just enough to only get the one long.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because the angle changed. Yeah. And... I mean, I should have noticed that and held a little bit more on the shoulder, especially with missing right. Yeah. And so he goes under the fence, goes over the dike, disappears. So I'm like, great. And so I'm like, shoot, I'm trying to wait. We'll give him some time. Then, like the bear, here comes this monsoon because we're in monsoon season. Yeah. It starts. I'm like, all right, I have to go look. So I go over there.
Before the rain washes away everything. Yeah. I
go in there and I look. I see gut material. I'm like, all right, and there's this cat claw cut that goes out. Cholla fields was on the sides, and then it goes through a nasty canyon. I'm over in flip-flops looking at all the, all right, he was right here. and he's in the cat claw, and I'm like, dude, this deer is like only going a few, so many times, and then I see him, where he like beds down. Oh, we're probably running out of time.
No, we're fine.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a few more minutes.
And I'm looking, and I'm setting up, and I'm like, I have another arrow loaded, trying to beat the storm coming in, because I can see it on the horizon coming in. And I like look over, and I just catch him bedded looking at me, and I'm like, oh, I draw back, he gets up, takes off. I'm like, great. So I'm like, he's running down. I'm like, dude, this is gonna be a mess. And so I start flip-flopping around trying to get up, and I'm like, all right, I jump him again. I see him. It's like one of those things where like we lock eyes at the last second. I draw, I shoot, and he gets up right as I shoot. Arrow, I don't know, it like skimmed his back. I'm like, God dang it, he runs. And I'm like, all right, he's from that point to that point, he's only gone about 30 yards. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go 50 yards, and then I'm gonna look back into it. And at this point, it's raining. And so I'm like, all right, the sign's washing out. Yeah. Like, it's monsoon rain, and my Garmin sight's filling up with water. I keep having to dump it. I can't see anything. I'm like getting soaked. I'm like, dude, this is a freaking mess. Like, what am I doing? I don't even know how to hunt. And so finally I go around and I look in, and I'm like glassing. That's why I always carry a little like 10 powers with me, because I'm stopping and I'm looking and looking and looking, and I finally find him, and he kept, because I knew every little clump of thick like hackberry, acacia, and catclaw, he liked that. Yeah. Just based on where I jumped him, and so that's what I looked into, because I went around, I saw a clump, and I'm like peeking. Finally I see his antler, and so I'm like, all right. I go back around. I stalked into this deer like 20 times just trying to find the angle. Finally found the angle, and the rain started to lighten up. Tried to make sure I got the right range, because I finally got his chest. Yeah. Drew back, put the pin on, just like, all right, this is just like archery practice. Yeah. And just boom, done deal. Got him double lunged. He's dead. I'm like, oh, thank God. But I'm like, if people only saw that, I'm like, this guy's an idiot.
So, but it's also a good story though too. Yeah. Okay. Let's reset this.
Yeah, sorry, I got going. His buck last year, right after I killed mine, and I went to go help him, and it was one of the biggest bucks I had found in that area. I told you that they started to kind of booger out of. Mm-hmm. Towards the end of the hunt, he actually glassed this buck up on a different mountain. And this buck was hiding in these like real thick little cuts, and it was one of those deals where like he didn't know how to even get on this buck. And I'm like, dude, you're gonna have to hunt him like you archery hunt. Like, you're gonna have to go all the way up on top. It's gonna be a close shot. It's gonna be like 150 to 200 yards shot. Yeah. But I'm like, that's your only way to get a shot on this deer, because where we're at, there's too many ocotillos. Like, you could never get a bullet through any of that. Yeah. And if he got up and went either way, he'd be gone. So he did. And the wind's blowing, and it's like moving in front of. He sent me a video. I'm like, dude, you're gonna have to time that shot, because if you freaking nail that ocotillo, that bullet's not going where it's going. Yeah. Anyways, he's telling me on the phone. He's like, hey, I think I got a shot. Like, I'm gonna take. I'm like, dude, if you're comfortable, I trust you. Yeah. Like, I'm here to watch, because I was back down at the original spot, and dude, he shoots this buck. Stands up all jacked up, and he ends up shooting it again. But we looked at the first shot. This dude hit the deer's hoof, and it ricocheted back, because we're like looking at him like, this doesn't make any sense how you even did anything on this first shot, because we're looking at the dew claw, and it's like smashed, but then we're not seeing an entrance anywhere. And so like the only thing I think of is the bullet hit his hoof because of how he was bedded, and fragments came back up. And it just jacked him up enough to where he was able to get a follow-up shot. But I'm like, you give me crap for my August buck.
We all got stuff that we can give crap about. Okay. Tell me about working with your dad on like his inventions and stuff. So the ones that I put down here that I know about, and I'm sure there's more, right? The Swacker. He was involved in that, right?
Yeah, that was mainly him.
Yeah, and then you got the javelina call.
That's him.
You got the tack veins.
I don't think that's of his doing. I think it's somebody.
Is that like a collaboration that he's doing, or is he not involved?
I think he was involved in testing with that.
Okay.
But that wasn't his idea.
And then the quiver.
Yeah.
And then the big eye adapter focus ring.
So my dad's
talk about. I mean, we don't have to talk about all of them.
Oh yeah, I got you. Like yeah.
What stick out, and not just him, but like kind of your involvement in.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Do you bring him ideas and you're like, oh, we need to do this, or does he bring them to you, or he says, hey, I'm gonna do this, and then I can have you test it or whatever, or just kind of how does it all kind of flow? So
I'm gonna go back to the beginning, like growing up in Tucson when I was real little. My dad, he had Sonoran bow hunting products, and he had like, I think the only of its time in existence a long range sight with multiple pins, more than like most sites you can only get 5 pins, 7 pins. His design, you could get out to like 130, depending on your bow setup, you can get out to like 130 yards, 140 yards with the pin system he had. And he did, along with that, so he did sights, bow sights, and broadheads. Okay. And he designed, it was originally called the Sonoran head. It was a 2-blade mechanical that he designed specifically for elk because him and his buddies were hunting elk. And they're having issues with broadheads, especially on those big ribs on the bull elk. They wanted something that maintained its sharpness past those ribs and was designed specifically to get past that rib cage, which is why those wings flip out. Yeah. And it's how they function. So I helped him with building things, as much as I could when I was a kid growing up. And then a guy by the name of Hank Parker bought his patent for the 2-blade broadhead, and that became Swacker. Okay. And so I used to help build the broadheads when I was like in middle school, high school. Tristan, my buddy, he'd come help too. Yeah. But that's kind of been taken out, and he's the lead design engineer for Swacker, and he gets his royalties. He complains it's not enough money, but it's a lot of money. He gets his royalties, and so that's kind of a separate thing. Like I don't help. My dad's a super smart guy. See, I don't know why he didn't pass that down to me, but he's super smart. So for all the other things like tack vanes, I think that was their Swacker's sister company with that and that deal. The javelina calls, that was all him. I just helped with like being ears to make sure it was the same sound as the old Sears call we had. Okay. Searcy, however you want to pronounce it. Okay. Because that call, we were calling javelina and left and right with that, and then they discontinued it. So we're like, all right, we had one call left for all of us. Yeah. We're like, we need to make a call that sounds exactly like this so that we can keep calling javelina in. So that's his brainchild. The only idea I've come up with, because I told you didn't pass these smarts down to me, is the Z-Sync eye adapters for the big eyes, because I got a pair of big eyes, best investment I ever made. And I'm probably going to downsize those STCs because those giant
those things look awesome.
Yeah. I hope my eyes are wide enough to use them. But Adam, he's a super smart. He's like my dad, super smart dude. Yeah. Love that guy. Because those big eyes, dude, they take up my entire pack. And I always hunt sometimes I'm like 6 miles and 7 miles in, and I kill something. I ain't got no room in my pack because they're like this big and they're heavy. But I was glassing with those, and I'm like, I can't. I'm either glassing at the far end extreme, or I'm glassing all the way back out at the lower end. So which I think is 20 powers, and it's tough because I need this mid range because all the way zoomed in, it's dim, and it's just harder to glass at full zoom. So I'm like, why can't we just make a pulley system or a cam system that rotates them at the same rate? And so my dad and I brainstormed some ideas. He kind of took my ideas and we just meshed it all together and finally made that. There's some things I want to change with it, especially with the new STCs. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of what we do. It's nice because I started college in engineering. I was trying to go his route, and then I was hunting so much I had no discipline to get through it. So and then I became a cop, which yeah. So, I mean, you got to be smart a little bit with there, but I'm not using my mechanical brain as much. Yeah. So, he's a smart guy. I want. There's plenty of things I want to do more, but yeah.
What about the quiver? Is that?
Oh yeah, I was trying to think of what else. The tough thing with that is, and I can speak about this. I don't know if you know the Quivalizer.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen other systems that are similar.
Yeah.
Similar.
So that I'm spacing on his name. I think his name is Dan. It's for option archery, right? He has a very general patent that covers essentially any sort of stabilizer that has a quiver arrow component to it. So we came out with that idea and didn't understand quite that it violated the verbiage in his patent because it is so general.
Yeah.
We thought it was a far enough idea design away from his that it would be its own thing, but unfortunately it's not. So we had to kill that idea.
Gotcha.
Which I still have mine on my bow. We're not selling them,
Yeah.
but I still use it, dude.
Yeah.
It's nice because I used to laugh at my dad because he had this giant thing on his bow.
Yeah.
I'm like, how are you gonna stalk with that? Because I always get down, I'm like crawling around,
Yeah.
and then I'm like, he gave me, he's like, you need to really try this. And so I shot with it fully extended, and I'm like, oh, dude, shooting 100 yards,
Yeah.
I'm like on the money with it.
Yeah.
And then when you are stalking around, just using it as a kickstand,
Yeah.
it's amazing. And then I have those little tripod legs.
Yep.
So I just, even with it at the shortest extension, because it's a telescopic stabilizer, so you can extend it out farther or bring it back in. So even at, with it shortened, I can just set my bow on the ground, like almost like a rifle with a bipod. Yeah, and just leave it.
Awesome.
So it helps save my arms when I'm out stalking around.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Very cool. All right, let's get into some, I don't know what to call it. You talked earlier, you mentioned social media.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about social media and the hunting community, kind of in general? And then do you see anything that, does it help the hunting community? Does it hurt the hunting community? Kind of your thoughts on
I think it's
social media and hunting.
Yeah, I would say most people generally view social media with hunting in a negative aspect. It's like the whole, like, we eat ourselves kind of thing on social media. I think it's just like anything else no matter what on social media, there's a ton of negative aspects to it where it's like you have, like I was getting at earlier, like this comparison aspect of social media. We're like, all right, well, Joe shot a 110-inch buck, then like that's the benchmark. I need to do that, or else I'm not a good hunter. You have that, and then you have another component to where a lot of argument that people make is like Joe Rogan, Jay Scott, all these guys that are pushing hunting, and now you have all these guys in hunting, and you have limited opportunities.
Right.
And then going back to like the we eat ourselves type of deal, like a lot of people can argue like the trail cam law and a lot of that stuff is a result of us bickering on social media back and forth. People can argue a lot of hunting laws that are being put in place are from social media bickering back and forth and just drama. That's how it creates some of those restrictions that we have in hunting. So
that's interesting. I was going to also ask you about the trail camera ban because I knew you used to run a lot of cameras and that you were, you posted some things about it when the law changed.
Yeah.
But I had never heard that the drama or the contention online led to or partially or totally led to the trail camera thing. Can you expand more on that? I haven't heard anything.
Yeah, that's just my own opinion where I think that social media aids in division.
No, 100%. Yeah. I agree in that. Do you think that there were, either, lobbyists, lawmakers, anti-hunting groups or whatever that were like, look at these idiots, look at how much they're arguing about, oh, hey, somebody, bashed my trail camera up, somebody took my card, somebody did this, somebody did that, and they're like, oh, we can go in here and just ban these things. They're not organized, they're not whatever. We can just go in here and get rid of this thing that...
Oh yeah, undoubtedly. I think that was a basis of their decision because that was one of the main arguments that they had was the hunter conflict with trail cameras. Okay. Which I see the point. For me, I'm not a big fan on any sort of infringement on our own liberties, right. Especially when I can't make total sense of it. I'm all for laws that help protect what we have, And their argument too is it was hunter conflict and their fair chase law, which I see the point up on the strip where you have a catch tank, and because of social media, everybody wants to get a picture of big bucks to post up. And you get likes and comments and everything. So then you have 30 cameras on a water hole, and you have guys going in and checking them all the time. Yeah. I see that being, and I can't 100% speak to this because I don't have experience up on the strip. So take it with a grain of salt. I could see theoretically how that could be troubling for wildlife, going to these water tanks. You have guys going and checking cameras all the time. I don't know if that was exactly the case. I've heard that's what was going on. Same thing. And then you have hunters complaining, hey, you put a camera up next to mine, or, hunters, it's competitive. No matter how you want to slice it, it gets competitive. But for me, growing up down south, some of my cameras are 7-8 miles in at the farthest. And it's the only camera that's on a spring, right? And I'm going there once a year maybe. Some cameras, I got cameras when they put this ban into effect that are far as heck, and then me living up here now, I never got time to go back and pull them. So they're, who knows if they're still up on a tree or not. Yeah. And that's, I was rarely, when I was running cameras, I was rarely even going to them to begin with, like once a year. And it was strictly just for like a hobby, like getting cool pictures, getting jaguar pictures, stuff like that, cool mountain lion pictures. I was using a lot of those pictures for reference photos for art. Yeah. And you can't tell me that is impeding wildlife patterns or like being an annoyance to wildlife. Yeah. Or that I'm having any hunter conflict, because I'm not even seeing another guy. Yeah. So it sucks that because of what's going on up north and the politics up here, now all these guys down south have to suffer the consequence of that. To me, it sucks, because it's like I had this thing that undoubtedly I was putting in a lot of money. Like I for what I was getting back, like we talked about that buck that we had on camera all up in the pines. Yeah. I don't feel like I don't feel like us knowing about that buck up there led to his death. Yeah. Because he wasn't even living up there. If anything, it was wasting our time, because we were looking all the way up here. In the wrong spot. Yeah. I've never had it where it's like, okay, picture this animal, minus like the bear hunt with deer. I've never had it like, okay, just because I got a picture of this buck, that's what led to its death. Right. Yeah, it gave me knowledge that he's there, but I still had to put in all the work to go find him. And most of the case, he's not even in the same area.
Yeah, and really, it gave you the information that he was there on that day at that time.
Correct. And then that's it. Here's the other aspect of it too, which is one of my biggest arguments is, okay, I put a camera up and say it's on saltwater water, and I have 10 bucks on there, or whatever, just say 10. I see 2 of those bucks are mature. Now I know that they exist, so when I'm out hunting and I see these other 8 bucks that are young, I know, okay, hey, maybe these are bucks I might have shot if I didn't know that these 2 other bucks exist. Yeah. Correct, because going back to that story, that small buck I shot, right? I did have cameras, because this is back when you could, I think it was 2020. I had cameras, but I hadn't checked them that week. I had no idea there was multiple 100-inch bucks. There was even a buck that was like 120 going in there. Had I known that, I probably wouldn't have shot this young buck, right? It was just my bad, because I was going in. I didn't want to walk around everywhere. I just wanted to sit. Yeah. So that's a perfect example of that. It's like, absolutely. Yeah, especially with these bear hunts too. You're going in, you have no idea what bears are hitting. Yeah. That water I sat, maybe there was a big boar hitting it at 5 o'clock every night. Right. And instead, I see this other bear, as a sow, come in, and for all I know, that's the only bear on the whole mountain. Yeah. So that's my biggest beef with it. Is like now you took this one thing I was putting in a lot of money and time. It was getting me out in the field. Yeah. I was paying for, local stores for batteries, for SD cards. Like there was money being put into it. Now it doesn't exist. Yeah. So. Yeah. No, and I wasn't ever big on it. Yeah. We had a couple cameras out here and there. But yeah, the biggest annoyance for me is like what you said. It's taking away that freedom of choice, and it's infringing on that. And the reasons that they put out there, I don't think were valid enough to be like, okay. All right. A couple more things here I wanted to ask you about.
mentioned art.
Yeah.
So tell us about Sonoran Made.
So.
What is it?
Yeah.
That name, all that stuff.
So I grew up, I like to doodle a lot, like ever since preschool. It's funny thinking back to like when you had those parent-teacher little conferences. There you go. I would just, all I cared about was like, I got to show my mom what I drew that day, that week.
Yeah.
And it'd just be little doodles in the class, math class. Dude, I would draw antlers so much. Like my whole notes would just be full with these antler doodles. It just looked like dots on a page from distance, all little antlers. And I would just daydream about hunting bucks in class, which is bad because I should have been paying attention. So how I got through school and got through college is beyond me. But I was drawing for a little bit, and it was weird because when you're a kid, you're like, I had heard people tell me like, hey, you're talented, whatever, like, you should be an artist, and you grew up. And like, when I was a kid, that might as well have been the same thing as you should be an astronaut.
Yeah.
I'm like, it just doesn't, it's not a viable career field, I guess, is how I viewed it. I don't know where I got that in my head when I was a kid, but I took a long break off of it from like, probably like sometime end of middle school, high school area. And then like all the way up until probably I would say maybe my second year as an officer. I got back into it because I'm like, I got to deal with stress somehow and like get my mind off of things. Yeah. And mainly the whole reason why it started was I wanted some stickers from a Hydro Flask. I'm like, I want something that represents Arizona, and it doesn't exist. And so I'm like, how my dad raised me, like, just do it yourself.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, I can draw. I'll draw up something that I like. I want to throw on my Hydro Flask. So I looked up. I drew the Gray Ghost. The original design was the Gray Ghost. I'm like, it's just a random idea that popped in my head.
Yeah.
And so I looked up and looked at these sticker vendors, and it was like $50 whatever for 5. I'm like, that's ridiculous. And so I'm like, I could get 100 for $50. I'm like, I'll just get 100, and I'll just sell the others at cost for like my buddies. Just to get my money back, and I get my stickers. Like that's all I want. I just want my stickers. And so on Instagram, I was like, I just opened it up, and I'm like, hey, if you want one of these, just Venmo me like, I don't know, like $1, $2, and I'll send it to you to cover just the sticker and the stamp and everything. There was no profit on it. It was just cost. And they sold out like within a day. I'm like, what the heck? Why do people like stickers so much? I'm like, I get it. I want the stickers. So I was doing that, and I was just doing it through Instagram. I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'm a super risk adverse person, surprisingly, because I hunt. Like you think it'd be the opposite, but I'm like, I don't know about getting my own LLC. I don't know anything about this, but I also have that entrepreneur drive from my father. Yeah. And so I'm like, you know what? The art's good for me. It's a healthy coping mechanism for stress. I'm like, it's something I enjoy doing. I like creating things. This is all positive. I might as well like try to make something out of it. Yeah. Like, and make it more legitimate for people than like sending money through Venmo. Yeah. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get an LLC. I'm gonna learn all this stuff, and I'm gonna get the website going, everything. And I'm like, what should I name it? And I'm like, well, I owe a lot to my father for like how I was raised and the qualities that he passed down to me. So I'm like, I live in the Sonoran Desert. I love the Sonoran Desert. So I'm like, his company was Sonoran Bow Hunting Products. Okay. So I'm like, Sonoran Made. Like, it's me making things, and this is where I come from. That's where the name is. That's basically where the name came from. Love like it. Sonoran Made. So kind of to pay homage to my father. Awesome. Yeah, and then from there I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna put more time into art because I have all these years of lost time practice. So I'm like, I gotta catch up now. And so I've just been, man, like I'm sure you see, all my free time's kind of going to art. Yeah. And it's wild, man. Like the Coues cowboy thing, that just started as a doodle. I was down at my folks' house, and I'm like, you know what? It'd be kind of cool to draw up a cowboy on a Coues deer. Yeah. It was just like I wasn't even planning on doing anything with it. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna throw this on a shirt because I would like that shirt. Yeah. And so I bought the shirts, and then they sold out in like a morning. I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, why do people like this so much? I'm just goofing off, and so that was kind of like it was a weird thing for me to wrap my head around. Like, and then guys started showing me pictures of guys at like SCI wearing my shirt. And I'm like, why the heck are dudes like, why do they like this so much? But I get it's like it's such a niche thing. And
yeah.
That's mainly my goal with art. Like the big overarching like vision for me is that I've experienced so many things. Like I'm fortunate for how I was raised and my experiences growing up in the mountains since I could walk. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't get that experience. So I'm like, and you know how it is. You ask like why we hunt.
Yeah.
You can't put that into words.
Yeah.
Like it's impossible.
Yeah.
So I'm like, how can I share this experience with people? And one day I like took myself on a date to the Scottsdale Galleries with Mark Maggiore. I think I pronounced his last name right. He's my favorite Western artist. And he had a gallery in Scottsdale, and I'm like, I'm gonna go see this. And I went there, and it was like life changing for me. Cause I'm like, dude, this is amazing. Like this whole floor is dedicated to him, and every piece you go look at, you're like, dude, this puts me in a time period that I wish I would have grown up in, right? Or like I wish I was in this moment, but I am like in a weird way.
Right, you get to experience it through his vision and through his art.
Correct. Yeah. It's hard to put that into words. So like, for me, all I want to do is be able to do that same thing, but for my experiences like hunting, that's the only vehicle I can see of like getting people to that moment, and that's the hardest thing as an artist is to get good enough to put people in like right there.
Yeah. Like
where you feel like you're in that moment, the way the colors are, the way the landscape is. And I like photorealism, but I like that weird, like that one little touch of artistic, like just an artistic touch where you're like, this isn't just quite photo. It's just not a copy of a photo, but it's like there's emotion to it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm making any sense.
No, you are for sure.
Okay. That's my biggest goal is like, that's why I've been trying so hard. I'm like, I got to get to that level to put someone in that moment that I experienced or that exists in my mind. Yeah. So.
Well, I've told you a bunch.
Thanks, man.
I love your stuff. It's super awesome. It's super good. And so I hope you keep doing it and keep sharing it because I know a lot of people feel the same way. So
thank you.
Another thing that I see that you do is you're a pizza aficionado.
I've been slacking.
So what is that? Did your mom make homemade pizza, or did you just start being like, I want to learn how to make pizza? Or
that's like I'm going back to that quality of my dad that he passed down.
Okay.
This dude, he never does anything. Like he'll never pay anybody to do anything. He's just like, oh, I'll figure out how to do it. Like growing up, we built both of our houses when we moved out, Zavale, and their current house, which is their second. When I was going through the police academy on the weekends, I had to go help my dad. And if there's a will, there's a way. He was lifting like these 600-pound steel I-beams on a drywall jack and having me help. I thought I was going to get injured in the academy. I was so happy to go back to the academy because I'm like, I'm not going to be yelled at and sore from working on a house. So that quality I've had, like, I just want to like do things myself. And on the other side of that dynamics, my mom's she was a phenomenal pastry chef growing up.
Okay.
Yeah, she like did the Iron Chef stuff and
nice.
She worked for a really high-end restaurant, and my parents didn't pay for a sitter growing up, so I would have to go when I was little with my mom to the restaurant. And dude, I'm not a big video game person, so like even as a kid playing Game Boy, I get so bored. Yeah. Like whatever, I finish this level, I'm like, I'll see what my mom's doing. Yeah. So she would show me how to make things, and so like I got that weird baking kind of element to me where I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. Yeah. Like creating stuff, and so I love pizza, and so I'm like. In the growing up so far out of town, you can't go get pizza. Yeah. Like, because we grew up in the mountains, so it's like you got to make it. And I tried the whole like you eat your dough, whatever, you put it on a sheet pan, put it in the oven. I'm like, this is crappy. This is like cafeteria pizza. Yeah. So I'm like just thinking in my head, I'm like, how can I make this better? So I end up getting a cast iron skillet, a big old cast iron skillet, and I end up perfecting my dough recipe with the help of my mom. Yeah. And so I got the dough exactly how I wanted it, and I put oil in the cast iron pan, heat it up super high, throw it in there to get the bottom crust made, and then throw it into the oven on broil. It was like just a lot of trial and error, but then I finally got, I'm like, all right, this is like an Italian restaurant style pizza, and I've perfected it to exactly the way I wanted it to. So I haven't been making it lately.
And then you just try out different toppings, different flavors.
Javelina, elk, anything.
Yeah.
Anything. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. My wife, she bakes bread and stuff, and she's been making homemade pizza for forever.
Heck yeah.
So I see yours, and I'm like, yeah, that looks really good.
Yeah, I want to get one of those. What do they call them? Napoli, something. The pizza ovens.
The ovens, yeah.
Yeah, I was too poor for that. So.
Yeah, she has a pizza stone.
Oh, okay.
That you put in the oven, and you heat it up to 500 plus degrees or whatever, and then
just throw it on there.
And then so I mean, you throw the pizza in there, and it's like 3 minutes, and it's done. And you're like, holy cow,
that's nice.
It's good.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, just kind of curious about that. So again, I love how much you've referenced. I break my chair here. Your dad, and then now your mom too, and like the blend of that, and learning different things from them, and also them being involved with like, hey, you're coming with me. Yeah. You know, you're 5 years old, and your dad's like, hey, you're coming with me and bear hunting, Or your mom like, hey, I'm going to work, and you're coming with me. Yeah. And so that's very cool.
Yeah, it's one of those things you don't really have that much appreciation for until you get older.
Yeah.
And you're like, and then you see kids that are less fortunate. You're like, man, it makes you kind of do a self-check and be like, dude, I had an awesome childhood.
Yeah.
Like, my parents cared about me. They included me in things.
Yeah.
And I'm super grateful for that because it kind of shaped me into who I am today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. You think, what do they say? Like, oh, you think you know everything until you become an adult, and you're like, oh man, I don't know. I don't know anything. Now I got to think back and like try to learn from all the stuff my parents did.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I had a couple things here on some recent stories, some recent stuff. So, did you hear about the raffle tags?
Yes.
Okay. So, I didn't research a lot of it, but just from what I've seen. So, in Arizona, you have what most states call like the governor tags.
Yeah.
Right? So, you have these tags for, I don't know if it's every species, but like elk, mule deer, whitetail. I don't know if it's for all of them, but they would raffle them off at these big events, and it's one tag, and it's an auction, right? And so it goes to the highest bidder. Yep. And the idea is, and Game and Fish would say, and the state would say, hey, all that money, all of it, is going towards that species and the conservation of their habitat and making that better in Arizona. And then, I don't know. It's been I don't know how long, but then they said, hey, we also want to do these raffle tags that are similar to where you buy you're buying a raffle ticket, or you're buying chances to draw this tag, and the guidelines are going to be similar to where, hey, I bought, at $10 a piece, I bought 10 Coues deer raffle tickets, and whoever draws that, you have like the whole year, almost the entire state. Yep. And you go, so similar like guidelines, but one is high-end bidders, and generally it's the same few guys every year buying these tags and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then you have the raffle system, and people kind of like the lottery, whatever, but they got rid of the governor tag or the auction tags recently. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a horrible decision, in my opinion, because and here's my biggest complaint with that is there's no transference of information on it from the Game and Fish. Like, for me, I was hearing about it through Facebook, and then I try to Google what's going on, and I'm not finding
Can't find anything. Same thing.
Nope. Which I'm not surprised is it's easier to push through things when there's less. They kind of did the same thing with the trail cameras. The public input was, to me, this is a strong opinion, but to me it's just a checkbox show. Like, hey, we did this, even though it's not really mattering. So it's not causing anything or changing anything of what they're planning on doing. I see it as a huge detriment because it's taking a lot of money away from each individual species. I don't know exactly what their plan is with the raffle, but I don't know if there's any stipulations on how many tags or how many. Right. So the same problem, if my understanding is, from what I heard, the argument is that they don't like. I've heard that it doesn't follow the North American model of hunting, which I don't know. They never expanded. I don't know exactly what they're entailing with that. I've heard also that they don't want somebody who is well off and rich to have opportunities that the average Joe doesn't have. Me being the average Joe, I could care less.
Yeah,
it's one tag. Yeah, it's one tag. If you're gonna throw out $350,000 for a mule deer tag, dude, awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yep.
You can afford it. I can't afford
Yeah.
it. I can still hunt mule deer on my own on archery tag, or I can put in for the rifle tag.
Right.
I have zero issues on that. And I think an argument like that is a victim-based, like, ego kind of argument, which when it comes to conservation, I don't think it has any place in conservation.
Yeah.
So I don't, if that's the reason, if that's the argument, then what's preventing these guys from just buying
$400,000 worth of mule deer raffle tickets?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so you're still at the same ending point where your chance is still super low.
Yep.
I get it. Yeah, there is a chance still there, but I mean, let's be reasonable about it and realistic. Like, if somebody's got freaking thousands of raffle tags and I only got one, what is my chance really?
Yeah, and there's a couple other issues that I see, and that I would love to hear more about and see. Right, to me, it's like about that transparency, because
there's zero transparency.
On one hand, you're like, okay, you know, the owner of Jimmy John's, he's paying however much money for this elk tag. And all that money is going to go to elk habitat, elk conversation. Okay, like, prove that. Like, I want to see the transparency there. I want to make sure all that money is going to that.
Yeah.
Because if it really is,
then
their decision doesn't make any sense.
And that's not
they're getting rid of like hundreds of thousands of dollars that was going all towards conservation and helping these species, and now that's gone. I don't think through the raffle system they're going to make up that money.
I don't think so.
Plus, in the last couple of years, they came out with the whole specialty tag thing at the end of the year, where that's tons of money. So it's like, to me, that was just like a money grab of like,
it is.
Hey, we needed more money.
Yeah.
And we know everyone's going to buy, you know, a ton of people are going to buy these tags, or the possibility of getting these tags. You know, you're like, you already have the raffle system. Now you're starting this other one. And then you're eliminating the big money one. Yeah. You're taking away where all the money actually comes in from. So it just doesn't make sense to me.
It doesn't make sense.
Why they're getting rid of it.
And the thing that's, to me, frustrating is those documents exist for where that money's going. They already exist. They just have to, it just has to be
well, and I've been
available.
thinking, I've even been thinking of doing some research and doing like public records requests and be like, hey, where's this money going? Because I do know one thing, and I want to do more research on it, and I've been thinking of doing another video on it. Arizona Game and Fish Department is one of the only state-run organizations that their like surplus or parts of their budget go back directly into the general fund in the state.
Really?
So you're like, why is that? How come there's money left over? How come you have to have like these organizations, these nonprofit organizations, asking for volunteers and for people to go build this water catchment? Yeah. How come the Game and Fish isn't doing that? Right? Where's the money going? Right? Yeah. Like, and so I wanna investigate that more. Like, okay, the general draw, right? Tons of money. These special ones they're putting out, tons more money. The raffle system, lots of money. So it's like there shouldn't be extra to then dump into the state general fund. It should all go to the mission of conservation and making the wildlife in Arizona, sustainable. Yeah. Which really helps everybody, because you're like, okay, the anti-hunters, their main argument is like, well, when I go out hiking stuff, I want to see more animals. I want to see more of that stuff. Cool. As a hunter, so do I.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to go out and see more animals. Yeah. Like, and so, I'm grateful for those organizations and those nonprofits and stuff and people getting involved. But it's like, wait a second. The Arizona Game and Fish Department isn't doing enough to where people have to go build these water catchments and do these things. And some of them are sponsored by Arizona Game and Fish, and I get that. But it's like, but then you eliminate this thing that brings in over $1 million a year, and you're like, that doesn't affect the average Joe. Like you said, it doesn't matter at all. Yeah,
and I would just like a publicly released reason. It needs to be. Yeah, I get it that you can go do public requests for information on documents and things like that, but you shouldn't have to. No. There should be, we're all putting money into this thing. Yep. There should be more of a transparency of, hey, this is where this money went. This is why we're making this decision. Yeah. and there's no communication from them.
Yeah, and even like you said, more involvement of like, okay, they have Facebook, they have Instagram, put these posts out, because I think you're going to get more reach than them posting their story on their little page that is so hard to navigate.
Exactly.
But like, hey, put it on social media. Hey, this thing has come up. We're getting pushback, or we're getting stuff to where we're starting to look at the auction tags and this system. You know, hey, throw a poll up on Instagram. Do you want to? Should we keep it?
Yeah.
Should we get rid of it? Okay, let's go from there. Hey, and like start getting input from actual hunters, and then go from there. And it's like, no, it was out of nowhere. Like that a couple days ago, I started seeing all these posts, and I'm like,
where does this come from?
They got rid of the auction tags.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
I had no idea where it even came from. I'm like, I didn't even know this was on.
On the radar.
And then I'm like, okay, I'll Google it. Maybe I missed it. Maybe it's on me that I missed this. Well, there's nothing on Google.
No.
I would go through their page. Is there anything on their social media page, which is that's how you reach your constituents, is like through...
Yeah, disseminate information.
Yeah, that's how most people get their information now. You can argue about that, whether it's correct or not, but that's the fact. That's how most people get their information. So put it out that way. Yep. A lot of people would... Then you would have... And I don't know if that's intentional, so that there's not a huge public outcry for it. They're just trying to push things through.
Yeah.
But... Yeah, there needs to be some changes. And like you brought up nonprofits. My best example for that, especially down south where I grew up, when I grew up down south, in Sonoyta area, antelope weren't really a thing when I was younger. They were decimated by coyotes. Their habitat was, had changed a lot. There's a nonprofit called Arizona Antelope Foundation. Dude, amazing nonprofit. And they've done... just in the little time that they've spent working on these ranches down south, accomplished way more than the Game and Fish has done in years, and that's a problem. Like that to me, that's a problem.
Absolutely.
It's crazy. It's so simple. Like, hey, you guys need to like. You talked about their site. There's so many things that could be changed. Hey, you implement this quota system for archery.
Yep.
And then you have this spreadsheet that's on your site that you need to be checking in the field. Oh well. Nobody carries around a desktop. You can't open it up on mobile.
Yep, doesn't work on
mobile. So then, one of my buddies, he makes an app.
Yep.
Just to fix this problem that the government has.
Yep.
Like it shouldn't have to come to that.
No.
Putting into for hunts, to trying to do multiple hunts, for years they have this option on there to go to another hunt and not have to sign all the way back out. And how many years has it been? 5 years?
Yeah,
it's still messed up.
Yeah.
To me, it's simple. Like for conservation, put your money where it needs to be. For water sources, do predator management, which they've been backing out of predator management. Huge, and I don't understand why that's not any more simple. Like you have predators, you have less animals.
Yep.
You want to put out more tags, take control of the predators, but instead they're eliminating these coyote competitions, outlawing them.
Yep.
They're taking away bear hunts. They're putting in restricted regions on mountain lions when they have, in my opinion, their data is bogus for bears and lions.
Yeah.
It's based on a formula that, in my opinion, is not accurate.
Yeah.
So, like I wanted to go lion hunting this weekend. The region I want to go lion hunting, it's closed down. And then yet I'm talking to the houndsmen down there, and they're seeing more cats than ever.
Yeah.
Even my buddy I was telling you shot that mountain lion, that tall mountain lion. Shot that mountain lion. The next day, we see another tall mountain lion in the same canyon, and then a big female on another canyon. All within the same weekend.
Yeah.
Which to me is wild.
Yeah.
To see that many cats.
Yep.
So, I don't know. It should be simple. I don't understand why maybe it's just government.
Yeah, and I think that is the answer. We know that, government gets involved, and efficiency then goes down, but it's like, and that begs another question too. And there's organizations out there that are helping us and trying to unite us as hunters and outdoorsmen, or whatever you want to call it. You got Howl. Is it just Howl, or is it Howl for Wildlife or something like that?
I'm not familiar with that.
So I think you've heard it. So John
Probably.
Stallone.
Yeah, I do.
And then another guy, I can't remember his name. But basically, they have this website, and they keep track of all of the different political issues in the western states of, whether it's, the Colorado stuff, of banning trophy hunting and doing this and whatever. And they make it real simple that you can go and send, emails and stuff without you having to type up the email.
Oh, okay.
So you can be like, hey, I want to get involved. It's like a couple clicks, and you're sending an email from you, from your email address, to these organizations and getting there so that they can see, like, no, there's a lot of people that aren't on board with this or whatever. Yeah. But again, it takes that effort. But yeah, I think it's some stuff to look at, right? A lot of people, they might know and be like, hey, well, I know the Game and Fish, commissioner is appointed by the governor. Yeah. Okay, what else do you know beyond that? Right? How is the commission selected? Have you read through Arizona Title 17? How are all the laws constructed? How is all that stuff involved? What about the money? Where does the money flow? Where does it go? It should be 100% to the conservation of wildlife in Arizona. And so it's like, there's some other stuff that, and I think in general, hunters are like, no, like, I go hunting to get away from all this stuff. Yeah. Okay, well, if you're not going to get involved on some level,
you can't throw your ring in the
You're not going to be able to go hunting.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, yeah, it's interesting. I'm going to try to do some more research and maybe put out some more information about it.
That would be awesome. Because for me, I'm like I'm aware of my own faults. Like, maybe it's hard to have an opinion on something you don't understand. Like, hey, maybe there is another reason why they're getting rid of this, these governor tags that I don't know about. That might be a valid reason.
Sure.
Well, tell us, like.
Yeah, that reason should be put out there. Hey, this is what we did, and this is why we did it.
Yeah, and you'd have less people doing public outright if they just understand what the thought process is. Because right now, it's like
nobody knows what's going on.
You're on social media trying to figure out what everybody else knows, which could or could not be correct. You don't know. But the fact that I found out about it on a Facebook page is like crazy to me. Yeah. That didn't just like pop up in the news or some other avenue. Yeah. So, yeah.
Try not to cough here.
There you go.
Those were all my questions.
Okay.
Anything else that you want to talk about?
No. That was good. I can talk about this stuff all day.
I know, me too. Well, thanks again for coming. Yeah. And I'm sure we'll probably have you back. And
sweet.
So tell everyone where they can find you, though, like on social media or for Snore Made and stuff.
Yeah, I think my Instagram handle is just Eric J. Forrest, just my name. And then Snore and Made. And then Snore and Made's website is just snoreandmade.com.
Snoreandmade.com.
Yeah.
Okay, and then
it's
Instagram, Snore and Made.
Yep.
So check that stuff out if you haven't seen it already. It's awesome stuff.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And putting out a lot of new stuff and working on stuff all the time. So good. All right. Thank you.